your boy Neal, back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are with Steven Crowder. America is superior. Changed my mind. I've seen a couple of videos of like him doing these change my mind things on different campuses and colleges and stuff. I find it funny. I find it interesting. He does bring up valid points, and I like seeing the people argue with him. I don't know, it's just fun to watch. But we're gonna check him out. America's superior. I don't know. I keep my opinion to myself. Well, before we jump in, subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, give the video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. If you guys got a favorite video suggestion, you can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. What we got, Steven?
The woman who was jailed when she has like a child and a breastfeeding kid because she called a trans woman a man, she shouldn't have been jailed.
It's ma'am. You saw that video too?
Yes, I did.
Now, is that a slur? I'm making fun of that guy.
Oh, no. I feel like trans women aren't oppressed.
Well, he feels that way.
Yeah,
they feel that way. There are language
laws. But they're
laws.
white men, for the most part.
What if it's a black transgender? Who wins the oppression Olympics if it's a black transgender with rickets? Time for some bonus footage from the recent Change My Mind at UT Austin. Now remember, this Change My Mind setup was a bit different. We first let the students debate on a number of different topics, but I did eventually sit down with some students myself in the more traditional format, as you'll see here. Since the 4th of July is right around the corner, I wanted to include this conversation with Elise about why America is superior to all other countries. Watch, enjoy, and let me know in the comment section below what it is that you believe makes the United States the greatest country in the world. Happy 4th. All right. What's your name?
I'm Elise.
Elise. I'm sorry to hear that you were hit by a scooter.
Yes, I was.
Earlier.
It's not fun.
So we weren't even discussing this today. We just didn't happen to have the Build the Wall poster. But it seemed like you were passionate about this. I do stand by it. I do believe that the United States is the greatest country in the world. And if you disagree with me, you're more than welcome to change my mind, Elise.
Okay, I will say I do think America is great. I just think there are some things that make it not the greatest in the world. Maybe on par with some other countries, but not greater than them.
Okay, so which countries would you say are greater than the United States, and why?
Probably countries that have universal health care and stuff like that.
Okay.
I feel like that's a big issue with America.
So, like, could you name me some countries?
Like Canada and England and stuff.
What happened? Did someone throw something at you?
No, they started laughing.
Oh, that's okay. That happens.
I know.
Usually when I say something dumb. Yeah, so it's okay. So Canada or the UK?
Yes.
You believe that, or did you say Canada or England specifically?
I said UK, basically.
UK. We know it. I guess he wanted to be specific, but UK. We got you, Elise. We got you. Okay.
You believe that, or did you say Canada or England specifically?
Because I do agree about the universal health care thing. I do agree that I feel like that's something we could adopt. But
I said UK, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and all of those therein. Talking about any countries?
Yeah.
Okay. You believe they're better than the United States?
Not better, but I think the U.S. is on par with them. I don't think any of them are greater than, like, the other. Because I feel like, I just don't think America can be called the most superior country on earth when people are dying because they can't afford medication.
I do. Yeah, for a couple of reasons. Not only because our healthcare is better than those countries. By the way, did you know that I'm Canadian? I was raised in Montreal.
Oh, nice.
So, the death rates, the survival rates of serious diseases in these countries, particularly in the UK, 7 times higher if you have a serious disease or being in an emergency room than it is in the United States. The wait times, depending on the parameters that you use, can be anywhere from 2 times as long to 4 times as long. The healthcare outcomes are not better in these countries. And by the way, they're largely beholden to us providing national security effectively for the whole world because they don't have to burden that cost. So not only do I believe that obviously our healthcare system is flawed, but not only do I believe that our healthcare system is superior to those countries, particularly the country from which I migrated, Canada, to the United States, but there would be another reason outside of healthcare. Let's assume that healthcare were better in those countries. Freedom is a big one.
I thought it was like, when I be looking at graphs in different videos, it'd be showing like amount spent on healthcare, and it shows all these countries, and U.S. is like clears everybody amount spent on healthcare, and it shows like certain statistics about deaths and everything, and America be like at the bottom of these graphs compared to these countries who spend less on healthcare. But I don't know. We could be talking about completely different statistics here. But I'll let them keep going. 7 times more likely to die from a serious illness. Jeez.
Side of healthcare, let's assume that healthcare were better in those countries. Freedom is a big one. How can a country be better than the United States if they don't allow freedom to their citizens?
I don't think America really allows freedom to their citizens either all the way. Because once you've committed a crime, your rights are stripped from you.
Right. But we do assume that we grant everyone, we don't give any rights, we grant, or recognize is the term I should use here, I want to pick my words very carefully, recognize God-given rights to human beings here in this country that no other country recognizes. Namely, freedom of speech is a big one. That doesn't exist in those countries that you just mentioned. Is that not a biggie?
I feel like freedom of speech is very important. But at the same time, it's like...
I think it's just like hate speech that they have laws against, right? In those countries, it's like free, but you can't like say hateful like speech to somebody. Which is not a bad thing. If you're like, why would you want to say hate speech to someone? But once again, I could be wrong. I'm just going off of like different videos that I've seen about other countries and like their freedoms and certain things. But they're free to, other than hate speech, and I guess freedom of press would probably be a little different. No, I don't know. I don't know too much. I need to be quiet if I don't know the fact.
Important. But at the same time, it's like, this is getting into the whole like freedom of speech, hate speech thing, right? Like
No,
I mean like with freedom of speech being an important thing. I feel like there are certain things that are like more important than others.
Okay, so what's more important than the First Amendment?
Well,
what rights are more important than the freedom of assembly, the freedom of speech, freedom of the press? What rights would you say are more important for a government to recognize?
The right to life.
Okay, that's also something that we recognize.
Yes, but not entirely. If you are too broke, then America just doesn't recognize your right to life. They might say they do, but then it's, you can't afford insulin, okay, you're gonna die now. You can't afford this medical procedure, okay, you're gonna die.
Right. I think you're misunderstanding here the difference between rights and commodities. Right? You have the right to live. You have the right to seek the best health care possible for yourself. You do not have the right to force someone else to provide you with health care. You do not have the right to have somebody else create, invest, go through red tape and FDA approval process, study, become a doctor, go to medical school, get hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt, and force them to provide you with medical procedures or drugs simply because you can't afford them. That is not a right. That's a good. That's a commodity.
But that's the thing, is I think that should be a right. You should have the right.
But it doesn't mean that it is.
You should.
That's tough. That's tough when I hear that, because, like, yes, they do have to go through all that, but at the same time, like, certain people are born with these certain diseases and illnesses. Like, nobody, like, asked for diabetes when they're born. Nobody asked for cancer. Nobody asked for certain things. And I feel like for them to get this disease you're not asking for it. There's nothing that you, in certain circumstances, there's nothing that you did to get this. Know what I'm saying? You could have lived your life great, could have ate great, took care of your body, did everything great, and like caught cancer. And it's like, yeah, I guess you can't force people to like give you certain medications and all that. But I feel like a country should take care of its people. It should want to take care of its people. It should want to, know what I'm saying, help out these people who don't have the ability to afford the health care that they absolutely need to survive. So it's like, in saying that it's a commodity, it's like saying, like, you got the right to live, but if you're sick and you just can't afford it, then tough luck. I'm sorry, nothing we can do for you. Like, that sucks. Like, it might not be a right, but morally, that just sucks. That just sucks. And I feel like morally it's wrong, but keep it going.
That's the thing, is I think that should be a right. You should have the right.
But it doesn't mean that it is.
you should have the right. But that's exactly what I'm saying, though. That's why America's not the most superior, because they don't see that as a right.
Sure, but we do see, I would say this, and maybe we just won't be able to agree. Freedom of speech, to me, is more important. I think that's a much more valuable fundamental right than forcing somebody else to give me free health care. You disagree with that?
Well, I feel like, because I do feel like freedom of speech is an amazing thing. It's great that we're able to sit down and talk and have debates on whatever we want because we have that right.
Right.
For sure.
But
and it doesn't exist in these other countries. We wouldn't be able to do this.
But I do believe, like, there's just a huge flaw in the fact that people are dying because they cannot afford things.
But more people are dying in these other countries because their healthcare systems are worse.
But
The mortality rates, the survival rates of diseases like cancer, terminal diseases, not to mention the diseases that are not being cured in these other countries, the major treatments are coming out of the United States because of medical innovation and research, which doesn't occur under a socialized system. So if you're talking about people dying because of healthcare, more people are dying because of lack of access to good care under socialized healthcare systems than the United States. No system is perfect. But are you willing to give up your freedom of speech, your Second Amendment rights? But let's just go with freedom of speech. You're willing to give that up for a worse healthcare outlook overall, provided that it's given to you at gunpoint by another taxpayer?
I still don't know if I agree with that healthcare thing. I understand Steven, and he's making valid points, but I still don't think I can agree with that, because I feel like the statistics I've seen of the rates there's more deaths and stuff here in America. And I feel like a lot of Americans can't afford healthcare, so a lot of Americans don't go try to get treated for this. So is that involved in the statistics if you don't go to the hospital and try to get treated? I don't know. It's a tough debate. I'm just happy. I could never be a politician. I'll just say that and let them keep going.
To you at gunpoint by another taxpayer?
Very tough. Very tough.
if I wasn't allowed to say certain things, like if I wasn't allowed to, I feel like there are things that people shouldn't be allowed to say.
Okay.
Is the thing. That's
so you
my
don't
stance.
support the first. So freedom of speech is not necessarily something you support. Now this. Okay.
I don't necessarily support people. People shouldn't be allowed to say. Like people shouldn't be able to say.
Do not say fire in a crowded theater, please.
I mean, like that. Yeah, definitely not. But that is technically like that incites a riot. Like that's already not. Like you could already get in trouble for saying
Yes.
that. Like,
That's not because of speech. That's because it's a lie.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like people shouldn't be able to like. We already have restrictions on freedom of speech here. You're not allowed to incite violence against people. Like it's like
That's not a restriction
or
on freedom
not
of speech.
that. It's like in a crowd, you're not allowed to like.
You're trying to think of an example. It's not saying fire, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
That's what everyone says.
I'm trying to think of. You're not. You shouldn't be allowed to like. I shouldn't be allowed to go around calling people the N-word.
Why not?
Because that's a slur. Like
Sure.
that's not something I
Sure.
should be allowed to say.
Why not?
Because that's an offensive word. That's a slur.
It's an offensive word, absolutely. Someone just called me a idiot. Right? Should I be able to have these guys haul them away in cuffs?
Well, no, I don't think cuffs is. That's.
Well, what do you do? What do you mean you shouldn't be allowed to say it? What should the ramifications? By the way, people shouldn't walk around calling black people the N-word, okay? I think we both agree on that. But you said people shouldn't be allowed to.
I think there should
Why
be
not?
Because that's not okay. Like
I think because of the history that comes along with that word. Like effing idiot, but the history that comes along with the N-word. But then, I mean, there's a lot of things that I guess I don't agree with hate speech. I'll just say that. I do not agree with hate speech. I feel like you shouldn't be allowed to say hate speech. Why would anybody want to be allowed to say hate speech would be a better question for me. But keep it going. I like these debates because they get you thinking, and know what I'm saying? They definitely keep you on your toes.
Why not?
Because that's not okay. Like,
It's not nice. So what would you do to someone who uses the N-word? What should be done?
there should be like a small fine or something, like to like deter them from saying that. Like, people shouldn't be allowed to call me a like that's a slur.
I think people should be allowed to. I think it's mean.
It's a word that's been used to oppress lesbians for like years. Like like it shouldn't be allowed to be, you shouldn't be allowed to call a gay person a that's like not okay.
Why not?
Because
Saying it's not okay or that it's wrong or that it's offensive doesn't mean that it's not a right.
it's like those
Okay,
words.
so she's basically arguing like morally it's not right. Like she's basically arguing morals against like actual rights, I guess. So I understand where both of them are coming from in this debate. She's saying you shouldn't be allowed to say that. Like it's morally, it's just wrong. And he's saying, well, like it's a right. Like I don't think your right to say whatever you want should be stripped away.
Wrong or that it's offensive doesn't mean that it's not a right.
It's like those words have been used in oppressing these people for like a very long time.
Okay.
It's kind of like it's those.
For example, people who were in position, the N-word, people who were in position, I want to make sure that we understand and kind of save us some time. For example, with the N-word, people in positions of power, not only plantation owners, but people in government, right, who supported slavery in positions of power, use the N-word as a way to degrade and assert their power over black people, right?
Yes.
Okay. So these are people in government, people in positions of authority who use this term. Why would you want to grant the right to legislate language to people in positions of power or authority?
I just feel like
You're giving that
should
power
have
away to the
right-
patriarchy.
Those words specifically dehumanize people.
Sure, but the
the
point
part
is,
of it.
someone is going to be determining what language is allowed or not, right? You want to give that right over to the government.
Maybe not.
You want
the
Donald
government.
Trump to determine
no,
what you
I
can
don't
or
want
cannot?
Donald Trump.
Okay,
I don't
so
even
the next
think
guy.
Donald Trump should be the president.
Well, who cares? So the point
I
is,
feel like that's part of why America isn't superior is because of Trump.
but the point is, right now, it's going to go straight to the top. You want him in charge of language?
No, I feel like it should be like a national vote. Like that's what I think.
So do you believe that all rights come from a national vote?
No.
Well, no,
Definitely
but
not.
I feel like certain things should.
Well, okay, let me give you this as an example. In these other countries like Canada, where I come from, you have comedians who've been jailed for offensive jokes. There's actually a friend of mine named Mike Ward who was put before Human Rights Tribunal and I believe fined $150,000 or $50,000 for a joke that offended a kid from a Make-A-Wish Foundation. You have people who are arrested left and right in Europe. In the UK, there was a man who was actually, I believe, fined because he was doing a cover of Kung Fu Fighting at a karaoke bar, and an Asian person said that was offensive to him.
No.
When you have the government determining what language is and is not acceptable, that's a very dangerous precedent to set. Where's the line? What you find offensive might not be offensive to someone else. What someone else finds offensive, who may be in power for those 4 years, may be completely acceptable to you.
God dang it. Steven's making a lot of sense. God. Because somebody is going to have to decide what's offensive and what's not offensive. And I guess if you leave it to a national vote, certain people are going to find things offensive. Other people aren't going to find it offensive. So it's like, I feel like as a human, you morally shouldn't say these things. But to legislate it as a law, I guess I do understand where Steven's coming from on this. I do understand it because people, people are offended by a variety and many different things, and so you might not even mean to offend someone, and you did, and now you got to pay a fine, and you got to, so I agree with what is her name, Eliza. Morally, you know better than to say certain things. Like morally, as a human being, like. It may not be a law against it. There may not, you know what I'm saying? But you know better than to say certain things. But on Steven's point, I agree with that. There probably shouldn't be a law against it because now it's like, who decides what language is offensive? Who decides what's a slur? Who decides? Somebody's got to have the power to decide that. And if you do leave it to the people, you're going to have a big group of people who don't find it offensive, a big group of people who don't care, and a big group of people who do find it offensive. And so I guess like you said, no system is perfect. Gosh, hey, this is a good debate.
What someone else finds offensive, who may be in power for those 4 years, may be completely acceptable to you. Why would you support giving that right over to the government? Furthermore, most movements, civil rights movements, the LGBT movement, right, the gay pride movement, these movements have been created by people who would be presumed to be underclass or the oppressed, right? And they did it through language. They did it non-violently. They got legislation passed. Why would you want to strip them of their language or grant the authority to the government to strip minorities of their language?
I'm saying that we should make it to where people that aren't of the minority can't call the people of the minority slurs against that minority.
But minorities and majorities change all the time, right? That's the whole point to a constitutional republic, to protect the rights of the minority from a majority. Anytime you grant the government the right to legislate speech, it ends badly. It's never ended well. So I just want to make sure that maybe we can move on to another issue of discussion. You believe that these countries are better than the United States because they have socialized healthcare, and it seems to me like you believe that they're better than the United States because they don't have freedom of speech.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I mean, like, I feel like no country has done freedom of speech stuff correctly. I'll say that.
I would say the United States.
Because, like,
I would say you can't do it correctly because you're dealing with humans, and humans are going to make mistakes, and no matter what way you do it, there's going to be people who figure out ways to offend. There's going to be people, you know what I'm saying? And there's going to be governments who try to extend their power too much. So it's like, you're never going to have, I feel like, a correct way of doing it. It's how I feel like what I'm learning from this debate. There's never going to be a perfect way to do something. There's always going to be people who are upset about the way it's done. There's always going to be people who are in favor of the way it's done. But you're never going to please everyone.
Speech stuff
That's
correct.
what I was looking for.
I'll say that.
I would say the United States.
Because, like, I'll say, like, the woman who's jailed when she has, like, a child and a breastfeeding kid because she called a trans woman a man, she shouldn't have been jailed. Like, that's not okay. Like, I feel like there's a, like...
It's ma'am. You saw that video too?
Yes, I did.
Now, is that a slur? I'm making fun of that guy.
Oh, no. I feel like
But he does.
trans women aren't oppressed.
Well, he feels that way.
Yeah,
They feel
he
that way.
does.
There are language
but they're
laws.
white men, for the most part.
What if it's a black transgender?
They're men for the most part.
Who wins the oppression Olympics if it's a black transgender with rickets? The point is, you can't deter. This is the problem with identity politics, right? You just said, well, no, hold on a second. So, because he's a white man, he's not oppressed. Well, he thinks that, and you have these bills, you have these pieces of legislation that are being proposed that would outlaw misgendering people. I mean, you see that in Canada,
And that's
right?
an awful thing. 'Cause
Why is it awful?
That's not oppression.
They see it as oppression.
Because someone called them the wrong gender. I've been called a dude before, multiple times.
I don't know. I hope maybe that was a guy who was hitting you on the scooter. Could have been drunk. I would never confuse you for a dude.
But, like, so what? Like, that's not the same as, like, someone tried to, like, someone
But they
literally
want
came
to
up
literally.
I feel like she's shooting down her own argument and saying this because it's like they're offended by it. That offends them. So what you're arguing about that offends certain people and people shouldn't be able to say that. Well, now they're offended by people misgendering them, or they're offended by, and so and she's saying now you're putting yourself in a position of power, saying, well, you guys, that is not oppression. You should not be offended, and if you do feel offended, tough luck. But you're saying, well, these guys are oppressed. You know what I'm saying? So it's like now you're putting yourself in a position of saying what's oppressive and what's not. And like we said, people are going to be offended by so many different things. And so, Steven's good at this, man. Steven got me out here thinking.
Someone tried to, like,
But they want to literally take your rights away. They want to do the exact same thing to you that you want to do to people who might use the word or you understand?
But I've been hit before with the word being hurled at me.
But they've been hit with someone calling them a tranny, or they've been hit with, God
I don't
forbid,
think tranny
being called
should
a
be
man.
called.
Being called a man instead of ma'am. The point is they want to do the exact same thing to you, remove your right to speak, as you would do with other people. Do you see the danger in that? And who determines that line?
I see there is a danger in it, but I feel like the thing is really it just comes down to, in the most part, like, people just don't care about each other is the thing. Like, that's why I feel like there should be regulations.
Okay, it doesn't seem like you're super clear on what the regulations should be at this point.
It's a very fine line to walk is the thing.
I don't think it is.
So it's a very hard thing. Like,
I don't think it is. I would fight with every fiber of my being your right to say whatever it is that you want to say, offensive or not, as I would hope people would fight for my right to say it. I believe free speech is absolute. I do not believe that places like the UK or countries like my place where I was raised in Canada have it right. I think they have it wrong. I think it's an atrocity. I think it's a violation of human rights, one of the most fundamental human rights. And I think that far and away is what makes the United States the greatest country in the world, along with also really good healthcare and a kick-ass military. But thank you so much. Was it Elise?
Elise.
Thank you, Elise. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being civil. And I'm sorry that someone hit you with a scooter and called you a name. I would never do that.
USA! 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 USA!
Oh, you're still here. I'll chalk that up to.
That was a good. I enjoyed watching that. I feel like nobody should see themselves as superior or inferior to anybody else, whether it be countries or wherever. Every country has problems that they need to fix, and I guess as long as humans are running things, like, and I mean, I want humans running things, don't get it, but there'll never be a perfect system. There'll always be people who feel a certain way. There'll always be people who, I guess, are ignored. There'll always be people who are unfortunate. Like, no matter what system you have, there's gonna be problems, basically. But that was very intriguing to watch. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that. I'm very intrigued. For me, I could see the points of both of them. Or morally, I could understand where Elise was coming from. But as a right, as laws, and to give someone that power, I could understand where Steven's coming from. That's all we got. You guys got a favorite video suggestion? You can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, give the video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. Social media, Patreon, all up top. You know, subscribe to any of it. Put all the links in the description. All you gotta do is hit the link, follow me, talk to me. Love talking to you guys. You guys are the most incredible team on YouTube. It's your boy Neal. Out.